Yes, I know.
Hello, I'm Gwen Griffin, the Executive Director of Old World Foundation, and I'm here today with Brian Mitchell. Brian is a former Old World Foundation trustee, a voiceover artist, and a musician, and he will be playing for the VIP portion of our Sunset Soiree event on August 21st. So welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So we want to talk a little bit about Brian and his music today.
Okay.
So can you tell us what instruments you play?
Sure. My principal instrument is guitar. I began that at an age of about 20 or so. And somewhere along the way, I picked up the bass, and I also use that. So I've played that professionally, and I've used it on my own recordings. I also have a drum kit, 5-piece drum set, and I've used drums, played drums on some of my own demos. I still rely on the pros for these things when it comes to the actual finished records, but yeah, so drums. And then piano is also another instrument for me, which I love to play, and that one comes a little bit more naturally to me also. I've found it, the keyboard lays out so efficiently that it's a fun instrument to play. So those four principally, not too much after that. If I tried to pick up a saxophone, I'd probably honk a few noises out of it, but that'd be about the extent.
And no harmonica, huh?
No, actually I do, but I don't make it a stock in trade. So for example, I tend to go out as a solo performer, at least in the past, and I would cover songs. And one of those was I'm a Loser from the Beatles, as that goes back quite a ways. For those of you who aren't familiar with that song, it has a harmonica lead. And I taught myself how to play that, and I still have it, and I'll still use it every so often. But no, I'm not a harmonica player.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you started playing guitar at 20. When did you pick up the other instruments? Just along the way?
Pretty much along the way. As a child, we had a spinet piano in the home, and my mother played. She tended to play Für Elise by Beethoven. That was her one stock piece. And then the girls, I've got 4 older sisters, and at least 2 of those 4 took lessons on that. I never really knocked around on it that much. I wasn't that interested. I was much more interested in my father's guitar, which at the age of about maybe 5, I think I sort of pounded that poor thing into submission. And then later on, when I was around 14 or so, I found one at a rummage sale that I wanted. And my folks were like, now you got to remember, this was the early 70s. And and we're talking about, my parents were born in 1917 and 1918 respectively. So at that time, it was seen as that whole drug culture thing. And maybe that had something to do with them saying, yeah, no guitar for you. And it's a pity, really, because I would have, in those years, I would have had a lot of time to spend developing and practicing and learning and getting better at it. But when I got to be 20, 21, well, I was free to make my own decisions at that stage. So I bought one, and I was self-taught initially, but then I also worked with some of the professors from the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music. Don Linke, most notably, taught me major and minor scales and intervals and triads, and just, really gave me a good grounding in music theory. And boy, I'll tell you what, I've had a lot of fun with it ever since. A lot of fun.
Nice. What type of music do you play?
Well, so I'll digress just a little bit more. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but for 23 years, I played in a band called the Piles of Rhythm. And some of you may remember a news anchor in Milwaukee by the name of Mike Miller. Mike actually tended to float he went from channel 4 to 6 to 12, I think, finishing his career at 12. But and we did classic rock from the 60s, a little bit from the 50s, but mostly 60s and 70s. And then I remember going to them in Brookfield at St. John Vianney's Parish Festival. I walked up to the stage after they finished a show and I said, hey, I'll tell you, if you're ever looking for a guitar player, I'll tell you, I'd be interested in that. And it was a couple of years later that they, in fact, did lose their guitar player. He decided to leave over health concerns. And so all of a sudden, I was put in the position of learning a lot of songs I'd never played from the 60s and 70s, and then some that I did know. But I also, by that time, had taught myself a lot of things like the Doobie Brothers and the Eagles, and you know, some of that kind of rock out of the 70s and what have you, and a few like from the Cars from the 80s and things of that nature. And I brought that to that band, and we played the church and civic festival circuit for, yeah, about 23 years. Summerfest and you know, just playing in and around the Milwaukee area. So it was that style of music. Now, when I go out as a solo performer, I tend to go more to the songs that I really enjoyed. So in my case, I think Paul McCartney is the Mozart of our era. I mean, nobody's had more hits, if you want to measure it by hits, but then you can also go in and look at the stuff that wasn't hits. He's got some amazing material, some wonderful songs, and he's such a prolific and wonderful writer. So I like to go back and play things that maybe weren't necessarily high profile songs, along with the other ones like My Love and Band on the Run and things like that. And I do that on an acoustic guitar. And then from that, sometime around 2000 or so, I started writing my own songs. I wanted to see if I could do it.
Mhm.
And I had a lot of fun with it. I recorded a sort of a self-recorded album in 2011 called Sketchbook. And I engineered it. And that was a bit of a mistake because I'm not an engineer, and I'll be the first one to admit that now. I also had it mastered by a friend of mine who really wasn't a mastering engineer either. So I never released it because I didn't care for the way it sounded.
Mm.
That having been said, there were some good songs on there. And last August, during the pandemic, I knew a number of musicians, some really, really good people. The drummer and bass player for Daryl Sturmer, who, for those of you unfamiliar, Daryl is the guitar player for Phil Collins and Genesis. Daryl likes to go out and tour because he has written some of those songs. There was Phil Collins had a huge hit called I Don't Want to Know. I don't want to know. And Daryl wrote that song. So Daryl will go out and tour and play material that he wrote with Phil, and a lot of things that, you know, are his own. And these musicians were a part of that group. Well, they weren't doing anything. They couldn't tour. COVID knocked everybody out of the box. So there was that. Other musicians I knew who were just top shelf, really good people, and they weren't working. So I took them into a studio last August, a few studios actually in Milwaukee, and recorded a new album called Love and Lies. You can hear tracks from it at brianmitchellofficial.com. We're working on obtaining a publicist, excuse me. And, you know, right now I'm just launching live streams with singles. I've got 5 singles out that went out through CD Baby. They're available on iTunes and Amazon and Spotify, and so they're going worldwide on streaming services. I'm about to release the album. We're doing the artwork for it right now. And then I'm planning to go back into the studio in August and record the follow-up album. And so I have to say, I've had a lot of fun playing other people's music, and I'll still do it because they're such a wonderful influence. But I've also reached a point now where I'm actually in rehearsals to just go out and play my own songs because I've got enough of them.
Mhm.
The last count was a little over 70, and I've got
Wow.
another close to 60 that are on the stove and being developed.
Wow, I didn't realize you had that many originals. I've heard 3 of your new songs and I love them. They're great. So
Thank you.
so people can go, you said, to Spotify and some of those, but you haven't totally released your album. It's not for sale yet because you're still working on the artwork. Is that correct?
Actually, the album and the singles can all be purchased off of that website, brianmitchellofficial.com. That's where
Okay.
it started. But in order to get worldwide distribution, I did have to go out through CD Baby. And I was counseled to release some singles first and then the album after the fact. And so, excuse me, in order to put these things out, you really do have to, it's like CD Baby mandates that you have specific, very specific artwork. So I had to come up with a design that worked with just the singles. And it's very basic because these things come up almost as like little thumbnail designs when you're looking at Spotify, for example. So in order for them to be kind of legible and identifiable, it's very simple and just has the title in big block letters and then my name underneath. The album, on the other hand, is going to be a little different, and I'm working with an artist out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who's helping me with that. And we should be done with it, I would think, probably within another week to 2 weeks at the very most, and then I can go to duplication and you know, getting physical copies, CDs and vinyl. And at that point, I'll be able to offer those out for sale as physical copies. But you can always, and also, I think probably before the physical copies arrive, the album will be available via streaming too. But at some point here, I'll be able to offer people hard copies.
Nice. Well, congratulations on that. That's quite an undertaking.
It's fun, and you know, there's going to be enough people that are going to say, what are you thinking at your age? What do you think you're going to be a popular musician? And my response to that is, first of all, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's part of it. The other is music is a passion. I have a real career. It's called voiceover, and there's going to be more than a few people who won't know what that is. I narrate shows for Discovery, Science Channel. I record commercials and things of that nature, and I've been doing that for 30 years. I've enjoyed a wonderful career, and I still am enjoying it. But yeah, I love music, and I mean, it would be disingenuous for me to say that I don't care whether I succeed with it or not, but I don't have to. It's kind of a luxury to be able to say that this is something where I can go in. There's really no pressure to have a career with it. It's really more about enjoying the process of creating and making art. You know, for example, you'd look at somebody my age who made pottery and ceramics and go, oh, well, see, that's fun. I look at it very much the same way. Every time I craft a song, I'm trying to make either the ideal of what I had in mind when I was conceiving of it, or at least as close to that as I can come, and create something that I hope people will enjoy. And and it's almost like a piece of pottery. Put it up for sale, see if anybody wants it. So that's what that's all about for me.
Well, I think that many people will remember you from Midsummer Magic because Piles of Rhythm did play at Midsummer Magic. And Brian played for our virtual 1930s, excuse me, event last year and did an awesome job. So, Brian, you've supported Old World Wisconsin through our foundation for a number of years now, and we appreciate that support. Why do you feel it's important to support Old World Wisconsin through our foundation?
I can think of a couple of reasons. Having been on the board, I have to say, I knew I wasn't going to have necessarily a lot of power to change things, but I did want to sort of feel it out and hear it out. I've been to the museum, obviously, a number of times, and I call it a museum, and it's I got to tell you, it's so much more than that. It's a beautiful experience to be there, to be in nature, and to visit a time period that has been preserved so well. These eras that have gone by. Old World Wisconsin is a depiction of what life used to be. And I'll tell you what, when you think about the fact that we are these days, working with computers like you and I are right now, or the fact that our lives tend to revolve around these things. And here, let's flash that so they can see it's my cell phone. There was a time when life was an awful lot simpler, and values revolved around something that I think were more important and were a lot more weighty than this frivolous nonsense that I can't tell you how many times I wish I didn't have a cell phone. Like, when I retire, I suppose I'll continue to keep one so I can stay in touch with my children, but otherwise it would give me great pleasure to turn this into a Frisbee into Lake Wandawego, which is not far from where I live. So Old World Wisconsin to me is that, and then there's a lot more even besides that. Digging into it, and why, for example, I feel it's important for people to become involved and to donate to the foundation, is the good of preserving the museum, of assisting it, of helping it along. But I'm going to give you for instance, and I brought this up when I was a board member, and I'd still love to see it happen. Things are happening, by the way, for those of you who have not explored Old World. The brewery's up, is that right?
Correct. It's not, the building's not open yet, but they are very close to completing it. Yeah.
And these are the types of things. I want people to think about Knott's Berry Farm. Now, I think Knott's Berry Farm, I've never actually been, so this is probably an unfair comparison. But it strikes me that it's, maybe they have rides and things of that nature. It's turned into a huge attraction. Well, I think Old World Wisconsin, first of all, has expansive grounds. And one of the things I learned while I was on the board is that in and amongst those grounds, there's this, if you've ever been to Old World, especially right off the parking lot, there's a pavilion area. Then if you look off the back of that, it recedes down, there's a valley there. A valley that would be perfect for an amphitheater that could host live music. And in fact, architectural designs were drawn up for exactly that. So if you wanted to try to draw the big picture, you would say, so much can be done with these grounds. And Old World Wisconsin actually is in a position, if it were developed, and this is going to take time, it's going to take the foundation, it's going to take assistance from people who will help the foundation to help this happen. But it could really reach a stage where the museum can become self-sustaining. And by virtue of the fact that, it's very central, it's central to Madison, it's central to Milwaukee, people coming up from Illinois, and this could be turned into an incredibly major attraction given development and the time to do that and the resources to do that. So that's why I support it. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for Wisconsin.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into the new arrivals campaign. And so what we're raising money for right now are immediate needs associated with the brew house so that it can be open for programming next season. But the much bigger project and bigger campaign is in the next few years. They are doing things, building the brew house, renovating the tavern, having a new tram stop, a new welcome and ticketing center, a new pavilion. All those things will help Old World Wisconsin become much more self-sufficient and sustaining and looking ahead to the future. So while they're preserving history, and the tavern is actually the first historic building that has come to Old World, I believe, in the last 25 years. So it's exciting that we have another historic building there to, interpret.
Sure.
So what you say is true, and that's this is kind of the first step towards that goal. Yeah. So
yeah, I think so. I think it's important for people to see that this can be really a gem for the state of Wisconsin. Again, given the resources, given the time and the planning and the resources. And that's what Old World Foundation to me represents, is the opportunity to assist the museum, make sure that it continues to do the good work that it's doing now, and to help it to grow and develop in the future.
Right, right. Well, and so for Sunset Soiree on August 21st, as I mentioned, Brian's going to be playing at our fundraiser. And we are raising money to fund the immediate needs, as I said, for the brew house. We're hoping to raise $30,000 by the beginning of August.
Let's do it.
So that we can, buy furnishings and exhibit panels and whatever else is necessary for it to be open. So with a donation of $250 or more, you will receive an invitation for two to come out to Old World for the exclusive evening on August 21st, complete with a gourmet dinner, gourmet picnic dinner and entertainment. And a $500 donation will get you tickets to the VIP cocktail hour where Brian will be playing. So you definitely want to do the $500 donation.
By which time I will have physical copies of my album. I will bring them, and if you're there, you can have a free copy that I will sign for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. That is very cool. Yeah, it's like I said, I've listened to the music. I encourage people to go to Spotify or any of those others that have it and listen to it. It's great.
Yeah, I think you'll find there's a little bit of something for everyone on that album. It's not all just one style of music.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. The 3 songs I've listened to are different in style. Yeah, for sure. And I want to mention that thanks to the generosity of 2 of our current trustees, we have a matching grant. So all donations up to $10,500 will be matched 100%. So we can hit our goal for sure. So I would encourage people to go to oldworldfoundation.org to find more information or to make a donation. And one last time, Brian, how do they find you again? It's the music.
Oh, if you're looking for my album, you can find me at www.brianmitchellofficial.com, as in my official website.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brian. This was fun.
Thanks for having me. We'll see you in August.
That's right. We'll see you in August at Old World, Wisconsin. Until next time, bye-bye.